Hello, there is a difference between peace and hyper peace. Nature shows this. Nature shows us things, and hyper programming is led by the identity of the hyper shows. Nature shows us that we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. Nature shows us this way. For example, its identity of relationship to itself, an extent of its identity, an extent that comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that is showing us about difference distinctly from what anyone else could. It is the only identity that causes all others, individually grouped in together, to be value as nature/nature's value. In physics, in metaphysics, and with identity, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Further, hyper simultaneously. We are shown that our species volume, as a species individual body, made up of a whole bunch of individuals, all group differences have a hyper simultaneous difference generating that. Even when it takes it away, it shows us how it is value as nature/nature is value, and nature is value/value as nature, being an identity that is bigger than right to left and left to right as itself distinctly in metaphysics, not just in physics, and relative to and as its identity, part juxtaposed with matter, part will not juxtapose with matter, and part will anyway equally, increasingly, distinctly, as value to itself. And that's equally increasing. They're distinct parts of itself that we can discern also as three parts of time. Nature itself is showing us there's an extent to the past that we know is true always. And it's showing us there's an extent of what is active right now that is true always, that we know is true. And there's an extent of the future that we know about, is already value here now. The seasons, for example. There are three parts of time that we know are that have a bonded, grouped relationship to themselves. We are shown also the value of their. We know that there was an extent of the past that was there, but that we don't know about, let alone being true always. Not denying the slightest exception, not valuing someone else using our truths for lies or to screen lies. See, this preaching method shows people how to put truths, lies between truths. This preaching method shows A through Z how to blame other things, others, or selves for negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. For example, that nature itself is demonstrating are relative to and caused by a human fact attribute nature breaching method /S. Not just a singular breaching method, but a singular method hiding behind. And as U/S of all the plural part rolls with itself. So before America's founders were born, entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13, were roles sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too, with human fact attribute nature breaching method /S. See, this breaching method forced all the rules with what no one wanted roles with. And they knew that there would be methods of criminal insidiousness nature with convictions as nature demonstrating those roles. See, but now they have written laws, voicings, written as collusion /S, differentially though, but increasingly equally. This is a difference racket. So in other words, modern countries have means to transverse the earth, but they can't overcome that criminal insidiousness nature of logic at each age, dealing with each age of fact should be nature, where they are weak and where they are strong. It's communicated for a tactical ulterior from the how the identity of hyper-simultaneous uses the difference between opposites and exceptions and a special difference. Nature uses opposites, exceptions, exception, nature, and a special difference simultaneously / hyper simultaneously. See, but you guys prevent short words. Leading before the World Trade Center attack, intelligence communities, intercities, they used remotely the sense and sensibilities of presidents as individuals, as is recorded manifest at countries A through Z. The individual voice is sickly distinctly a victim, also sickly non-distinctly, but also where and how that self-value, in other words, because we all want to counter where we're all sickly non-distinctly victims of the same thing. But that is right where everyone's self-valued rolls with that, hurting themselves as syntax nature. Even all appearances of other are a demonstration of the same thing / s. When, in other words, this is relative to the answer, as the answer of why and how could they have stayed replacing so long, questions our founders communicated for us to understand about how and why they would start with the economies, while all natures of wealth and the difference were collusion with the overt criminal, with the worse than war crimes method that was entrenched with the torture, extortion, and fact cheap nature slavery method, non-distinctly against everyone, which simultaneously is a physical slavery method. But no one could overcome that physical slavery method until they have the quality of fact cheap nature necessary to overcome properly the the breaching method's use of location / s and of differences. Already, all sides in criminal and civil cases, their lawyers, their sources, their family members, they were manifest and are manifest with apparent motivations. Real ones are, even the real motivations are used for lies. The difference between that and the courts too are contributing at the same time to self-valued rules with the same sequence shifts from off all locations / s at A through Z. A breaching method maintains hyper additional collusions with itself that no one wanted, again, makes exceptions. For example, Wethersfield schools recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Since I was a little kid, increasingly from off the campuses, foreign and domestic intelligence families have had time collusion / s with overt criminal enterprises and private ones too, and with their religious spots. This is also relative to where and to how, for example, per science, both the Old Testament and the Quran have parts that dictate how to defend those books syntactically. And no one even knows about those parts, because everyone defends those books out of sequence. And as their defenses of uses of identity, therefore of names, through and as systems tactical ulterior, while pretending they can speak about morality, law's nature, property. Those original collusions where that breaching method had what is the modern, what is still the state of Connecticut corrections offices and the judicial branch offices, and the difference of the corruption there or next to them. It also played out at campuses. Their roles of predicate acts with facts at campuses, sticking fake things into databases and acting there and next to it, tied to it, including faked audio and video transcripts on campuses filmed 24/7. They post-dated legal papers from inside the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers. It has something to do with their roles with the neighbors of some of the victims of that. They're also lying about their rules for wants and needs for privacy. By as is recorded, where interbranch forge names, switch names, and prevent writing so they can stick fake writing into databases. New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, and Connecticut's District Court at West Hartford locations, they have roles with recorded use remotely criminally foreign influenced all natures of investigations. Investigators, their campuses, their houses, the houses of people tied to them, the difference of that, corners next to that. As people enter cities involved with the corrections offices in Wethersfield, Hartford line, and the difference between that. Increasingly, people with the corrections offices and the judicial branch offices of Connecticut have roles with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in the Hartford courts, the New Britain Superior Court, and Connecticut's District Court that have affected rules with predicate acts, with facts and methods of them singularly bound. And that's exploited too, where even they don't understand the extent of it. They forced Saudis to collusions with them before the World Trade Center attack, in that attack context, and since. A whole bunch of people tied to the name Scalora have roles with a whole bunch of different countries where they have differences, racketeering, worse than war crimes. And a little bit from each culture are collusion /S, where they pretended they could speak for the law. And they have all natures of campuses, including fire and medical, involved with, their treatments of what they call all treatments of peace have state collusions with the definitions of war to keep too the definition of revolution, criminally foreign influence, and roles with that self-value. Also, tactically delusions wrought. There is a Christina Sioko who has a boss I never met. He pretended and or it was pretended through the mail for them that he had conversations with me. Or in other words, I never even met him. A Dr. Gilmore. And he's associated with the Christina Sioko, a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital involved interstates with my neighbors that used to live in the area and ones that are still here involved with the police confessions, forging and switching names, and they have a cousin named Phil Cololo, who's one of the ones further involved with the confessions of a Bob Chase with the Whiting forensics, and the confessions of a Joshua Julian. Whiting Forensics has roles on a Facebook page of a principal child offender that forced it, and they have roles changing and fabricating digital evidences, sequences, and and fabricating evidences, including medical and sexual and digital, and mail crimes, wire crimes at the same house /S since I was a kid, on campuses with them, criminally foreign influence, timed uses of names next to it at body dumping spots relative, and murders involved that were involved with intercities. See, there are connections between all kind of bad things in the news, and the names of the news involved with predicate acts with facts methods, much worse than they're putting little kids and adults in jail for, including framing people and including their roles with those crime scenes, with a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, news names, their sources, and much worse with that to keep this the outcome. What motivates people to pretend, they're honest when they speak about things as critical as black pupils' whites of eyes, and how we have systems that aren't led by the revelations that come with this, having the same color eyes and different color eyes projected by that which leads the hyper shows. That's what shows us there was a difference racketeering method worse than war crimes entrenched in America and in other countries before our country's foundings and through their foundings, because it measured and maintained roles with itself that could not be defended syntactically or any other way, and not but self-value roles syntactically and nature-wise as styles, but with its method, and nature demonstrating its method. With those, and its method involves roles with those demonstrations instead blamed on other things, others, or self, like prejudice. Clearer than day, our founders left us to communicate about how people are dishonestly blaming things on prejudice. And when they're doing it honestly, no one is allowing them to blame what we're supposed to blame it on, which is the breaching method. A breaching method is a scientific value, as one of the things that we could discern was true always about what was the value individually grouped in together of those laws, every single one of them. Not just before our founders were born, while they were born, and while they became a country after it, because it was still entrenched. That's where slavery was entrenched north and south. Someone said, how was it still entrenched north and south? Because there was a breaching method that measured and maintained roles with that. And with U/S of what it cost. And with U/S of all instances and or names descriptions. And database relativity / relativities to all things. And the plural part is also ordered by the hyper-simultaneous part. But we have not been allowed to appreciate this. This breaching method knew that the identities of the sciences individually grouped in together. It knew that they could show them means for all natures, means and needs for other people, for means and needs for people who are going to be following pure sophistication, which is hyper-native pure. In other words, there are connections between our campuses and all locations, then further at the campuses actually, because of how the names of the sciences are manifest and how our fact-treatment nature styles are manifest. Forced the same way fact-treatment nature styles. The same way styles are forced for types of athletes, like boxing. A style is forced by nature itself. In other words, nature itself is showing us the value of the Constitution on the bridge is denied a quality of fact-treatment nature and use of hyper-evidential. See, we're going to have to discern the hyper-evidential. The borders problems at the big countries is because there is differences, racketeering, worse than war crimes. With all sides of criminal and civil cases, the courts, the police, the formal law names, the private ones, the prisons tied to them, the state offices, state corrections offices, state judicial branches. And look at that word, corrections. So increasingly, people with the name Cololo and DeMoro have roles with people at my grammar school who have roles of body dumping spots in overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and putting fake things in databases at campuses and U/S of it there and at other places. And in other words, they've been wire crime action methods, roles, needs, and natures with the campuses and uses of that to fake and change what's recorded, including digital. So all the roles with the networks, with the stories on the school shootings and murders, they have collusions with predicate acts with facts with their names and sources consciously to an extent. But it is also with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his defendant capacities, and with others like a James Comey, and with people who answer the phones for the FBI. And when they make subject treatments about such like that, all the readings of statutes and law are read criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw. I'm not even a lawyer. There's a Trantola who has rules with them with all kinds of, with pretending people make conspiracy theories, pretending they had conversations that weren't even, then he has to go change a one sentence conversation into a fake narrative. They have judges and prosecutors involved with identity theft, frauds, and slanders with them, all kinds of medicines and crimes and roles, and sexual and medical and overt criminal enterprises with child offenders associated with a Trantolo and the networks involved with them. See what news going on off crime scenes. The reason they have the license, it's supposed to be licensed so they don't tell lies. But then they learn as this breaching method showed them knew they would, they're directed to hide lies. They have nothing to do with legitimate state secrets. In fact, those state secrets only have to do with how they have a whole bunch of different countries shared on off campuses. And they're involved when people make instances, descriptions of things like crimes and such like that as collusion slash S. You know, defending and hiding those also with the differences and the motivations for it. It screens that people that don't even know each other have needs, are shown needs to use corners of streets for sequence shift, for evidence planting, bring up someone's names where you drive by other people. There's a method that keeps use slash S of sequence shifts planted and other federal evidences crimes by names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the lawyers, their sources, and the courts at the same time for different motivations, putting the same sequence shifts, like with the World Trade Center attack, and lying and hiding about their motivations, pretending that they don't understand people to have nature debate, force of nature debate, as collusion slash S. So the police pretended conversations with me as a kid, now as an adult, so they can't be trusted. And the news did this also. They attached me to fake words with themselves. WFSB has roles before their World Trade Center attack in that context and since from Connecticut, as their roles with the names interstates and internationally criminally involved, and with the uses of the differences of sides. That is also used by those worst involved with the World Trade Center attack. Fear. Also, the name